Welcome to Suthichai Live English. Thailand's foreign policy has been under scrutiny, under a lot of pressure, and at the same time, it is very clear that the new foreign minister, Kun Panpri Phayithanukorn, is trying to bring Thailand back onto the world's radar screen. Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs, Kun Sihasak Phuangketkeow, is no stranger to Thai foreign affairs. In fact, he is one of the veteran Thai diplomats. And now he's called back to the foreign ministry to perform a very important task. I think Kun Sihasak can tell us what is happening, what has happened, and what's going to happen to Thai foreign policy from now on. สวัสดีครับ คุณ Sihasak ครับ สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ คุณสุทธิชัย Thank you for having me on the program.
Thank you. So, are we back on the world's global radar screen yet?
Well, I think that's for others to judge. But I think that, we are doing our best, and I think we are back on track in terms of our democracy, in terms of the direction of our economy, and also the proactive role that we are playing now in our foreign policy. And of course, obviously, I'm talking about, in particular, the situation in Myanmar. And also, if you look at the visits that we've undertaken, and also the visits that we have received, we've gone to probably all the key countries and key capitals, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, Beijing, Washington, Tokyo, India, Australia, Germany, France, and also the visit that we have received, as you know. And so I think that these are indications that Thailand, as you said, is back on the radar screen.
What remains the challenges? What are some of the challenges you are facing? Because going back to world's radar screen is one thing, but also maintaining our presence and also our proactive role is another thing. Are we prepared to play that active diplomatic role in the region and also on, even as a small country on the global scene?
Well, there are many challenges that we face, and in terms of our diplomacy, we have to be prepared to take on these challenges and contribute as much as we can to our peace and security, to peace and security of the region, and also to global peace and security. As you know, we live in a time of uncertainties. We see conflicts around the world, Ukraine, Gaza, and nearer to home in Myanmar.
Southeast Asia too, South China Sea too.
Yes, but there are also other challenges that, challenges at the global level.
Yes.
On climate change, and we have to be more proactive, So I think that it's important that, our diplomacy recognizes that what are the challenges that we face, and we do our best to contribute, to play a role in meeting these challenges, working with countries in the region, and also working with the international community.
What has Foreign Minister Panpri done to restructure the foreign ministry? I'm sure with your help, because of your experience at the foreign ministry, you must have been able to advise the foreign minister and also to be able to, at your senior level, to effect some changes there. Because I do think, as an outsider, that the foreign ministry will have to undertake some changes in the mindset, in the approach, in how we do things.
Well, I wouldn't say that Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Panpri is an outsider.
No.
We work together during the tenure of Prime Minister Suthichai.
Yes.
That was a time when we had tremendous changes in the regional and international environment. We took a very active role in Cambodia.
Right.
And of course, the foreign minister, the deputy prime minister, has also previous experiences from his position as trade representative of Thailand.
Yes.
And I think what is important is that he has brought strong leadership to the ministry, and he listens to the views that we have, and we try to be as professional as we can. And I think that's the key. He's supporting the ministry in terms of being professional. And of course, he makes the final decision, but he listens to all the views that we have, and then of course he makes a decision. And I believe that the morale at the ministry right now is very high.
Well, what are some of the factors that have boosted the morale? And of course, the foreign ministry's foreign policy is also changing, or has undertaken a lot of changes in the digital era and social media. You cannot conduct foreign policy as we did 50, 30 years ago. Now the young diplomats who have a different kind of way of doing things, and Kun Sihasak, and you and me, we belong to another generation. What's the difference between you and the young diplomats these days? When you come back to the ministry, you sit down and talk to them, and they look at the mobile phone more often than they look at you.
Well, of course, in those days, we did not confront so many issues like we're confronting now.
Right, all at the same time.
Suthichai, remember, the overarching issue those days was about peace and security.
Yeah.
About how to survive during the Cold War.
Yes.
And we faced the tides of communism in those days, and we had the direct challenge to our security from Cambodia.
Yes.
But now the issues that we face are so many,
Very multifaceted, right?
Conventional security issues, non-traditional security issues.
Yeah.
We have to also relate to the domestic policy, which is to promote the well-being of the people, to promote economic prosperity, and so we're also taking on a bigger role in terms of advancing Thailand's economic interests. And it's not just about the traditional trade and investment issues.
No.
So we have to understand about the green economy.
Yes.
We have to understand about the digital economy, and how Thailand has, what we have to do to adjust our policies in light of, the new economic issues. So I think that, these are exciting times.
Very exciting, and also
for the foreign ministry.
And also confusing times.
Yes.
With all those new issues, climate change, even pandemic, and green economy, how do you restructure the foreign ministry, and how do you train the new diplomats?
Well, from my days as permanent secretary, I think that what's important is that we have to give the opportunity for our young diplomats, to think, to be able to come up with ideas, and it's not just a top-down approach. It has to be more of more greater consultations, listening to the views of the young diplomat, giving them the opportunity to present their views, their thinking. So I think that's important. And most importantly, I think that we have to, one of the challenge of foreign policy, the conduct of foreign policy, is that there are so many issues that we have to deal with, as I mentioned.
Yep.
And sometimes it's just responding to the daily events,
That's
keeps you totally occupied.
right.
But what is important is that we also have to develop a long-term, the capacity to do long-term planning, to think about the larger dynamics at work in international relations. And, I try to encourage people in our ministry, just sometimes because we're so busy with the day-to-day events, but
Yeah.
we should not lose sight of what are the bigger trends at work, in the world right now, and how do we deal with them? How do we adjust? And how do we position ourselves in position that, we try to, that we can better deal with these issues.
Yeah, it's very interesting times, exciting times, challenging times. But at the same time, some issues never go away, like the civil war in Myanmar. It has been on for decades and it's still there. So the issue at the moment is, the big question is Thailand playing the role of a peace broker in Myanmar? And I've seen you quite busy, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Panpri also at the border and also meeting a lot of people involved in the conflict. Now, are we serious about playing the role of peace broker for Myanmar?
Well, I can say this, that we want to play an active role. We want to help resolve the situation in Myanmar to the best of our ability. But, playing the role of a peace broker also requires the other parties to be able, to be ready to talk,
Right.
But at the moment, most likely, they're not ready to talk yet.
Not yet.
But we are trying to create the conditions for dialogue, and we're taking it step by step. I think we have a clear strategy. Thailand is expected to play a bigger role, and we're doing that right now. But at the same time, we're not going at it alone. I have to emphasize that. Whatever we've done, it's being done as part of the collective effort of ASEAN. Right? Especially, as you know, the Humanitarian initiative. And this has had the support of ASEAN. At the recent foreign ministers retreat, the ASEAN foreign ministers retreat in Luang Prabang, the statement of the chair, it was very clear that our initiative was supported by all the ASEAN countries. And what we're also doing is that, we're also trying to connect the dots. Connect the dot, meaning that Thailand is coordinating with other countries as well, with China, with India, with, of course, with Laos as the chairman of ASEAN right now. They've appointed Ambassador Phuangketkeow as a special envoy. We're talking with United States, we're talking with EU, because it's not just Thailand's voice or Thailand's role alone, If all of us are working together, to send out common messages that we like to see a reduction in violence. We like to see, all the parties working together to help address the plight of the people who are suffering and who have been affected by the upsurge in fighting, and calling all parties to think of how they can begin a process of dialogue. So Thailand alone cannot do this, but we must play a more proactive role. We must be clear as to what we want to do, and we must work together with friends in ASEAN and also friends in the region and beyond.
Is the process of a dialogue happening now?
To be very frank, it doesn't seem likely at the moment.
Why
Because
not?
in the end, it's up to the Myanmar parties, to decide to work towards a dialogue. We've been urging, of course, but I think as you look at the situation now, I think the fighting is intensifying. So at the moment, I think what we can do is to address the plight of the people, and that is why we've launched the Humanitarian initiative.
Yes.
I think for this moment, while the prospects for dialogue seems remote, let's say.
Remote, because you mean none of the parties has expressed any readiness to sit down and talk?
Or that each party has placed certain conditions which doesn't allow for all of them to sit down. But we should not give up hope. But the idea of the humanitarian assistance is more than just humanitarian assistance. We see it as perhaps an opportunity for dialogue. At least all the parties concerned should be able to talk about one thing that they have in common.
That is humanitarian.
To help, yes. So the assistance that we handed over or delivered on the 25th is not a one-off event. As I've mentioned many times, it's something that we have to build upon, something that we have to scale up, and also see whether we can seize the opportunity to promote a dialogue, right? If they're not ready, well, we have to continue urging. And sometimes maybe if we work together, ASEAN, neighboring countries, we could also create the opportunity for dialogue, right? If we constantly send out our common messages that it's time to head towards the negotiating table. So that's what we're doing right now. I mentioned that we do hear the concerns and perhaps criticism of those who said that the assistance was favoring the SAC, the military government.
Right.
You have to look at it this way, that it was the first cross-border humanitarian assistance. To some degree, we have to work with the SAC. But what is important is that we made sure that the assistance reached the people. And the distribution was not done just by the Myanmar Red Cross.
No.
They worked with the village leaders. They worked with the local CSOs, civil society organization, and the local community. And from the pictures that we have, the photographs and video clips, I think it was very much confirmed that the assistance did reach the hands of those in need. And again, we are aware that we have to do more.
Yes.
We are aware that we have to work with other stakeholders. We have received proposal and ideas from the other stakeholders.
Yes.
And so we will be engaging with other stakeholders to see what more can be done. How can we scale up humanitarian assistance along the border? It need not be a cross-border operation. Maybe we can, have other ways of ensuring that the needed relief supplies can be delivered to those on the other side of the border.
When is your next delivery? When is the next mission?
Well, I think we have to. Well, right now we have plans to begin consultations with those who have been involved in humanitarian assistance along the border. There are organizations, there are people who are already doing it right now. So we're going to be consulting with them. It's something. Sometimes it's not as easy as people say.
I know, because it's very complicated situation
Yes.
on the border, and there's so many groups. Even
That's
if they have
right.
the same sort of name, they might not be working together, as you know, as you and I know, right?
Yes, like the KNU political leadership
Yes.
issued a statement, but I think those on the ground, the KNU people who are on the ground,
Yes.
in that, I think they have a different view of that.
That's right.
So probably we cannot please everyone.
Yes.
And we have to be able to withstand some of the criticism, because our intention are sincere. And we will continue to do more and to improve on what we've been doing, and trying also to see how we can use humanitarian assistance to promote prospects for a dialogue. But I think what's important right now is we have to set politics aside for the time being. And we'd like all the parties to set aside the conflict, work towards, helping the people, wherever they are. We have to deliver humanitarian assistance, and Thailand is doing that, But it's not Thailand alone, we have to work with others. Yes.
Are we in touch with all the main factions, at least the three groups, SAC, NUG, and the ethnic armed?
Oh yes, when you say in touch, I think, we have various ways of being in touch.
Yeah.
Right? And so we even to deliver the first batch of assistance requires a lot of coordination for everything to be in place. Right. Some things, it's difficult to bring to the public everything that we've done. It's that sometimes diplomacy works that way.
Right.
It requires that we do things in a quiet fashion. But at the same time, we also recognize the need of the public to know. And so I've tried. I think the Deputy Prime Minister has tried his best. He's been on your program.
Yes.
And when on the day that we delivered the assistance, I spoke with the press, to tell them about what's happening, and our intentions, our objectives. I've also briefed the diplomatic corps, because they also want to know, so that they can report accurately to their respective governments.
What are some of the drawbacks from that first attempt that you want to correct for the next mission?
Well, there were, always, some last minute itches trying to have everyone on board, and have everyone see that, this is helping the people. And, we really have to make sure that it's as transparent as possible. It's credible in the sense that assistance is given to everyone without discrimination. And so I think making sure that it's effective, credible, and transparent is not easy, because we also had to bring in AHA, the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance.
Yes.
And they helped us with the remote monitoring. And we had to talk, with all the parties, because, sometimes last minute there may be, some hesitation, some second thoughts, Right.
Well, some of the criticism was aimed at our participation in meetings with the SAC at various levels, at the military levels, at the foreign ministries level as well. How do you plan to manage that?
Well, I think the reason that we're meeting is not to legitimize, the military regime. On certain things. We do have to talk to them, to work with them, but at the same time, we also recognize that we also have to to begin engaging the other stakeholders as well.
Yes.
Yes, but engaging the other stakeholders doesn't sometimes mean that we do it directly right now, because we have other friends who are doing that already.
Right.
And so as long as we're coordinating with our friends, working in the same direction, I think we are listening to the views of all the stakeholders, of all the Myanmar parties.
The Chinese government has organized at least 3 meetings of the conflicting parties in southern China aimed at trying to effect a ceasefire with a certain level of success. How does that fit into our initiative?
Well, that pertains to the China's border with Myanmar. And they had a very serious incident.
Yeah.
And I think they have made efforts to stabilize the situation. And of course, on our side of the border, we're looking very closely whether we would, how the situation evolves.
Yes.
And we do have our contacts, as you know.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we're urging, self-restraint.
Right.
On the part of all parties, and especially, monitoring the situation, hoping that it doesn't lead to spillover effects on Thailand.
Yes.
But if necessary, of course, we'd like to, we will have to, work in terms of talking with all the parties to see what they can do to reduce the violence, and bring about a cessation of hostilities. In fact, I think what we would like to see as we proceed with humanitarian assistance is a humanitarian pause.
Yes.
That should be part of upscaling humanitarian assistance. So on that issue alone, I think we would like to urge all the parties to come together and talk about how can they bring about reduction of violence, work towards at least a temporary humanitarian pause, so that we can upscale humanitarian assistance.
Meaning that we are proposing a humanitarian pause.
Well, it comes with humanitarian assistance, and we would like to see that, and we would like to encourage that on the part of all the Myanmar parties. And that would probably come together with the efforts to upscale humanitarian assistance. It would be more effective, of course, if we have a humanitarian pause to allow humanitarian assistance to flow across the border.
Do we plan to increase the number of channels to deliver humanitarian assistance?
Well, we have actually, there are various channels. We will look at where the needs are, and in each specific area, it doesn't, it could take different forms, Yeah. But we're working on that. I probably cannot say exactly, in details, but we're working on how the assistance could be delivered. It could be cross-border, or it could be, having some kind of humanitarian centers on our side of the border, and allowing, and helping to ensure that some of the assistance could flow more smoothly across the border.
Uh-huh. The concept of a corridor, is that still in the works?
Well, we talked with the SAC, and they're a little bit reluctant to use this term.
Why?
Well, they feel that it gives the impression that the borders is being opened up for major operations by international relief organization. I think that they have their concern with that in that regard. But whatever whatever the term, I think the objective is clear. To see that we can upscale humanitarian assistance to meet the needs of the people.
Well, in recent weeks, fighting has come closer to the Thai border.
Yes.
You must have got reports of that.
Yes.
What do we plan to do? Talk to the other conflicting parties and say, hey, don't get too close, or hey, let's sit down and talk.
Well, I think what is important is to ensure that the fighting doesn't affect the civilians, and the policy of the Thai government, the military, is that if there are those fleeing the fighting, crossing over into Thai territory, we will take care of them. And when the situation permit, we hope that they will return voluntarily back to their villages or the places that they came from. In effect, we have what we call a safe zone.
Safe zone, right?
Along the border. So in addition to the humanitarian assistance that we're providing and hope to provide more, working with others, I think we have this we've established in effect a safe zone to take care of those who are fleeing the fighting.
Is the safe zone really safe?
Well, I think so far, altogether since the military seized power.
Yes.
Over 2 years ago. We've had about 50,000, 60,000 a lot of people from the other side along the border coming, and we've taken care of them, and they've gone back, and we've had now we have a few more here.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, since the military announced the conscription plan, a lot of more people are coming over. Yes.
We're very much aware of that, and well, I hope that the SAC will see that perhaps the conscription is not a good idea. But it's up to them to decide, and we know that they're coming across the border, or sometimes by way of air. And so our embassy has been flooded, when the conscription was announced, with a large number of visa requests. So we do our best to manage that, because Thailand, again, it's upholding humanitarian principle.
In the last meeting, the retreat, you had for the first time a representative from the SAC. It's Undersecretary or Permanent Secretary for Foreign Affairs, right, from Myanmar?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
How did it go? Because it was the first time there was a participation from the SAC in ASEAN meetings.
Well, as you know, the decision is not allow representation at the high political level. Summit, or leaders, the leaders level, or the level of the foreign minister. But I think we welcome their engagement with ASEAN, rather than having their seat left vacant. And this is one of the objectives of this humanitarian initiative, is to re-engage Myanmar,
Yes.
government of Myanmar, with ASEAN. And it's about implementing the 5-point consensus. And it's not possible to implement without engaging with the regime in power in Naypyidaw. So but at the same time, they must also engage constructively.
Yes.
It's important for the SAC to take the first step, take a positive step to respond to the concerns of the international community, to respond to the 5-point consensus of ASEAN.
I think our dilemma is that on the one hand, we don't want to be seen to be legitimizing the coup, but at the same time, we want to engage the SAC. How do you strike that middle path? You have to really strike a proper balance there.
Well, if you really want to have a dialogue process, if you really want to work towards peace, you also need to engage the SAC, right?
Yes.
But not engaging on their terms, but not engaging on the basis of the 5-point consensus. But of course, when we talk about the 5-point consensus, we shouldn't talk about it in abstraction.
Right.
We have to talk, what are the key components of the 5-point consensus? And so, so these are, the reduction of violence, cessation of violence, humanitarian assistance, dialogue. So for the time being, looking at humanitarian assistance and hoping that humanitarian assistance could evolve into some reduction of violence. It could evolve into some humanitarian dialogue that could be further built upon. But we can only suggest the pathway.
Yes.
And it's up to the Myanmar parties. If you look at the situation right now, I think the SA seems to be more entrenched.
Right.
The opposition seems to be more emboldened.
Yes. Right.
But there will be no military victory. There is
On
no
either side.
Yes.
On either side.
On either side. And Thailand cannot afford to have more instability. Myanmar is fragmented. So we have to work harder. At the same time, again, as I mentioned, we have to work with ASEAN. We have, the chair has to play an important role. Indonesia must continue its effort. And we're talking with Indonesia. Countries along the border, sharing common border, must also be actively involved and not just express concern. And so that's what we like to see. Even the United States, they have pursued a policy of sanctions.
Yes.
But how to bring about a peaceful dialogue? Let's all, think together and mobilize our efforts, working in that direction. And I don't want to rebut what Professor Surachat said.
Okay, go ahead.
No, but many of his ideas are not are those that we're thinking of, but it won't happen right away. Some of them, it involves a lot of groundwork.
Yes,
it involves a lot of behind the scene diplomacy.
Yes,
some of which we cannot say right now.
Right.
Because if we say it publicly, what we're doing will be compromised. So I it doesn't mean that we don't, his how many points of his what he's proposed.
12 points or something.
I've gone through all the 12 points, and yes, but the problem, the challenge is how do you implement them?
I see. Yes.
We want to be a peace broker.
Yes.
But it's not just us doing that. It has to be others working with us. We can't just snap our fingers and say, please come to the conference table, right? So they have to be ready. And we have, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we just sit by and let them, wait until they're ready. We have to continue encouraging them and maybe persuading them. I wouldn't like to say coercing them, but but all of us, we have our respective ways of communicating with all the parties. So we have to work together. And the conference of friends, good idea. But we have to make sure that everybody's ready when we make a proposal.
Right. So this is where our real soft power lies, foreign policy.
Right. But everyone, is taking the cue from Thailand. And what I've noticed is that, we've received many visits, and in our visits abroad, what they've asked, for our opinion, our views is on Myanmar. So they're taking our views seriously.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of coming back on the radar screen. We're not just talking about peace, but we're trying to do something about it. It's not going to be it's not going to meet everyone's satisfaction.
I know,
but it's important that we try our best.
I'm going to tell Ajahn Surachat that you have been reading his articles, his proposal, and that you share most of his ideas, but then practically you have to put them into action. You have to implement them. So you seek his understanding, right?
well, of course, we seek his understanding of his support for what we're doing, sometimes not to reject everything outright.
Right.
We have good and sincere intention.
The light at the end of the tunnel is not that bright at all, right? You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet?
Not yet. Not yet. But I think if all of us begin to see, to be on the same page, ASEAN, and when I say on the same page, ASEAN must also think about, our diplomacy, our strategy to implement the 5-point consensus.
Yes.
And so I think it's important for all the ASEAN member states to sit down and not just repeat the 5-point consensus, but how do we implement it? And then, of course, with neighboring countries, I think the neighboring countries have a very important role to play.
Sure.
External partners, Japan, US. So what I think the good thing that I see, the positive development, is that we are beginning to talk.
Yeah.
We're beginning to coordinate. And because Thailand is taking the lead, right?
Yes,
someone has to take the lead, and I think Thailand has the legitimacy to take the lead by virtue of being next door,
right.
by virtue of having to to bear with the repercussions of the situation in Myanmar.
Does China and the United States talk about Myanmar in any in-depth way? Because Wang Yi and Jake Sullivan met in Bangkok. I understand that among the subjects they discussed was Myanmar as well, with Thailand involved.
Well, the meeting of Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi in Bangkok was significant. In the sense that I think it's another indication that Thailand is back on the radar screen.
Oh, okay, right.
Of course, they talked about many issues in their efforts to stabilize their relationship. I think Myanmar definitely was on the agenda.
Yes.
But it's not for me to to share with you what they discuss. But at least they're discussing Myanmar. Right. And so I think that's a positive development. and with the U.S. we are talking more. When we went to Washington, the situation in Myanmar was high on the agenda.
Yeah.
The U.S. wanted to listen to our thinking, our approach, what are we hoping it would lead to, and with the Chinese side as well. And so I think if the U.S. and China begins to have serious discussion about Myanmar, based on common concern about the situation there.
Yes.
And at least, from my view, Myanmar should not become an arena for major power competition.
Yeah.
And I think we in the region would have to send that message out. Because, we'd like to have a region that is at peace, that is not an arena for major power competition, where ASEAN is able to show its centrality.
Sure. So thank you very much, Kun Sihasak. And I hope to be able to get a regular briefing from you to update the situation, because it's happening very rapidly.
Yes.
And things do change every week.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to maybe give, a better idea of what we're trying to do. And, it's always important, again, that we share this with, the public.
Yes.
They are entitled to know, and I'm sure everyone is following what's happening in Myanmar.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you,คุณเสียศักดิ์
ขอบคุณครับ
ครับ
ติดตามสุทธิชัยไลฟ์กับผมทุกวันเช้าสายบ่ายเย็นมีเรื่องร้อนเรื่องวิเคราะห์เรื่องสัมภาษณ์เรื่อง Exclusive ต้องที่นี่ที่เดียวครับไปติดตามผมใน Facebook 2 เพจสุทธิชัยยุ่นกับสุทธิชัยไลฟ์และอย่าลืม YouTube ครับ YouTube ไปกด Subscribe ที่สุทธิชัยไลฟ์กด Subscribe แล้วกดกระดิ่งเตือนคุณทันทีที่สุทธิชัยไลฟ์มาในมือถือคุณนอกนั้น Twitter ไปกดติดตามและ TikTok ครับ TikTok ล่าสุดนั้นสามารถที่จะถ่ายทอดสดสุทธิชัยไลฟ์ให้ทุกท่านติดตามได้เช่นกันสุทธิชัยไลฟ์ anywhere anytime สุทธิชัยไลฟ์คือเพื่อนที่เล่าข่าววิเคราะห์ข่าวสามารถทำให้ท่านทันข่าวทุกวินาทีจากนี้ไปครับ